Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 14 years now, we've been asking the Frantrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. Well, we're meeting with Anne Huntington Sharma, the president of Huntington Learning Center, the nation's leading tutoring and test prep provider with approximately 300 locations nationwide and a growing roster of online programs. We're going to talk to Anne about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 14 years now, we've been asking the Frantrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. Well, we're meeting with Anne Huntington Sharma, the president of Huntington Learning Center, the nation's leading tutoring and test prep provider with approximately 300 locations nationwide and a growing roster of online programs. Hi, Anne. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here this morning.
Likewise, Anne. It's great to have you on the show. You know, it's interesting, Anne, because I've been doing the show for 14 years, and I can't believe I've never had Huntington on the show before. So I was excited. I'm excited, just like you, to have you on the show. Where are you calling from this morning, Anne?
I'm calling from New Jersey, Oradell, New Jersey.
Oh, fantastic. I actually grew up in New Jersey. You had a very rough winter, didn't you?
Yeah, but you know what? We get through it.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And I know you kind of like grew up in New Jersey, and which is fantastic. I thought maybe it would be interesting to kind of go back to the beginning, because I think Huntington Learning Center has an amazing story. I mean, it started with your mom and dad, and it goes back over like 40 years ago. And I think what's interesting for you, Anne, is that you grew up with Huntington Learning Center. So maybe you can kind of go back to the beginning on, how this all started. It sounds like it started with your mom and your dad.
You're right. Sometimes I say that I'm center number 17 because they either had a child or opened a Huntington Learning Center. Huntington Learning Center is the leading tutoring and test prep provider. One of the reasons why we are the leading tutoring and test prep provider is because we focus on our mission, which is to give every student the best education possible. And that mission has been with us since day one, June 1977, when Dr. Ray and Eileen Huntington, who, yes, are my parents. At work I call them Eileen and Ray, they opened the first Huntington Learning Center in Oradell, New Jersey. And then since 1977, so for 44 years, we have been opening centers across the country, which is absolutely fantastic. So from 77 to 85, Eileen and Ray built up systems, processes, a fabulous team. And then in 1985, Huntington Learning Center started to franchise. And we believe in franchising, and for the last 36 years we have been, and franchising is a fantastic way to ensure that a methodology continues, that a system is tried and true, and that impact can happen in local communities across the country.
Were you kind of, it sounded like, when I was listening to the story that, Eileen and Dr. Huntington didn't push you into the business end. It sounded like they kind of, like, I thought the story went like, they kind of said, go your own way, do what you want to do. And it sounds like you did that, and you accomplished a lot of great things over the years. And then how did you come back into the business?
Great question. So as I shared, I sometimes say I'm center number 17. So grew up in Huntington, in not only the Huntington family, but within the Huntington system. Some of the franchisees I have known since I was a child. And so it really is this fantastic system. And throughout my career, it has been very important for me to get experience outside of the family business. To ensure that I have the confidence, I have the experience to bring to the table, to bring to Huntington. Maybe it's a bit of reverse psychology, but it worked. So I did have a career outside of Huntington for about 8 or so years, and then Eileen, Ray, and I sat down and we discussed, okay, what are our goals as a family? What are our goals as Huntington Learning Center? And where do we all fit within those goals? So that's how we got to where we are today. And I've been with Huntington full-time for over 7 years. I started as a consultant focusing on marketing initiatives, and then did a deep dive in our training and support. And then over the past 7 years have worked my way up to president.
And you've done a wonderful job too, and as I follow a lot of different franchise systems, as you can imagine, doing the podcast such a long time. But I know over the last several years, if you go back 2 or 3 years, you've opened up a number of new franchise opportunities, haven't you? And what is that attributed to? I'm sure part of it is attributed to you coming on board. But how did that expansion come about?
The expansion, one of the reasons, again, why we are the leading tutoring and test prep is we have a very focused vision. Our vision is world-class student results and franchisee profitability. So when we're looking for, and when a prospect is looking for a concept, that there has to be a fit there. So we really try to make sure that it's the right relationship, because it's a 10-year term, and the goal is to renew your franchise agreement after that. So in order for us to have this growth, it's steady growth, it's very balanced growth, and it's because of our systems, processes, and most importantly, because of our team. We have a rock star team within operations, within training, within marketing, within all of our departments to ensure that our franchisees get the best support.
The theme of our podcast for 2020, and as you can imagine, was how a lot of franchises or franchisors, particularly like the brick and mortar, were able to, pivot and incorporate technology into the model. How did Huntington handle the COVID situation?
We handled it as best we all could. We're still in COVID times. for those who are still suffering, my heart and all of our hearts from Huntington go out. It's interesting that we're having this call today on March 10th, 2021, because it really is a full year.
That's right.
And so prior to March 2020, so a year ago, we were solely brick and mortar. And then at this time last year, the team and I, we rolled up our sleeves and we thought, how can we protect the brand, protect our franchisees, ensure that if their brick and mortar door is closed, how do we open it virtually, and how do we make this work the Huntington way to ensure that the integrity of our instruction, the integrity of our programs are what the families are trusting us with. So we worked around the clock to ensure that we could put our systems online. And it's a testament to our team. It's a testament to survival. And it was a real evolutionary moment for the company. We've been doing this for 40 plus years. So in a matter of days, we completely transformed to ensure that our franchisees could fulfill our mission, which I shared earlier, which is to give every student the best education possible, and our vision, which is world-class student results and franchisee profitability. Was it perfect when it rolled out? No. Did it work? Yes. And that's the absolute key. And we didn't have time to say, okay, well, actually, it needs to look like this, and there are too many steps, and what about this, what about that? We didn't have that luxury. We needed to get something out to the franchisees, to the community, and most importantly, to our customers, so that they had the routine. They understood that Huntington was here to help them regardless of what happened within the education environment.
It's certainly a benefit to franchising, isn't it, Anne? You know the old cliche is you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, and it must be well, I guess we could use the word comforting to your franchisees that they weren't by themselves, right? That they didn't have to come up with ideas on their own. That you had this network of all these different great minds to come together to come up with solutions to this problem. That's certainly a benefit of franchising, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's why folks go into franchising. It's a fantastic way to be an entrepreneur and have the safety net of a tried and true system to help when there's a need for help. The key is the individual has to follow the system. A Huntington franchisee is someone who follows the Huntington way, follows the Huntington system. Another, a Dunkin' Donuts franchisee is one who is selling Dunkin' Donuts. So you have to understand what the product is, but absolutely. And I continuously am getting different notes from franchisees thanking me. In addition to us putting our instruction and our programs online, we did a lot of, and we are continuing to do, temporary waivers of some fees and royalty for our franchisees. So we are really trying to do what we can to help our entire system.
I was reading about, a lot of the different programs that you came up with too, Anne, over the last year. Some of them I wrote down: Huntington Helps Live, Huntington Study Hall, Huntington Homework Help, academic performance coaching, and they sounded like, fantastic programs. Maybe you could talk a little bit about those, because I thought those were interesting.
Thank you. And yes, what we became a 40-plus-year-old startup overnight.
Great.
Because we had to keep on innovating, and we had to keep on thinking of how can we help more families. In this COVID time, everything was disrupted. We saw that families needed our help more than ever. So the first that you shared, Huntington Helps Live, that's our online platform. So we became overnight brick and mortar to an ed tech company. It's fabulous. And we were able to help so many students, and it keeps the integrity of Huntington because it's all one-on-one, individualized to meet the student's need. It's not skill and drill. It's not in a group setting. It's focusing on where that student needs the academic help. In addition to that, you shared Study Hall. We saw families, some families are still in this world. Everyone's working under one roof. And so we have these centers. Of course, we abide by CDC and the state government should there be a lockdown, et cetera. but our centers are open and we practice social distancing and everything that needs to make sure that the center is safe. So we have these centers. So we thought, well, why don't we open the centers up, create a program called Huntington Study Hall, where a family can come and the student can actually attend their virtual school proctored by a Huntington Learning Center certified teacher. This way, mom and dad can be doing their work at home. Right. They are they're focused on their work, and they can drop their child off at one of our centers, and the student can attend their virtual school. That was for the customer, and then we kept getting approached by businesses. So then we created a B2B business where corporations come to us, and then we provide services for their employees. So it helps the employer make sure their employees are doing their job while helping the students get the skills they need so badly. In addition to that, we created something called Huntington Performance Coach, because we saw that there are students who need to be organized. They need that 30 minutes of a coach to say, okay, what are your assignments this week? What have you done? What needs to happen? So it's a 30-minute check-in twice a week. And then we thought, okay, there's a need for homework help, which traditionally we're all about building the skills. We're all about going to the root of the academic issue and building it up. However, we saw in COVID there was such a need for that homework help, again, to alleviate all the stress that was happening. In addition to that, we added more free webinars on topics that were academic topics, topics that were mental health topics. So we partnered with experts in different industries to ensure that we were providing as much resource for the families, because there was just so much instability across the world. We wanted to make sure that regardless of what happened, we could help, and that's what we're here to do.
It's wonderful, Anne. My when my son's school last year went online, I hope nobody's listening, but they didn't do a very good job, Anne, at going online, and I feel like my son really lost, many months of his education. Do you see these services as, they're not temporary services. It sounds like these services that you just mentioned, they're probably going to be here to stay, aren't they? Even after, say COVID is over, I don't know if they'll ever be totally over, but that these services will still probably be here to stay, won't they?
Yes, it's up to the individual center, so it will be a participating center. So it's up to the franchisee whether or not the franchisee wants to have all of these different programs.
Do you think that, I don't want to use the word COVID was an opportunity for Huntington, but that maybe there's going to be an increase in demand, and because I get the feeling, I'm sure it wasn't just only my son's school. We have neighbors that we've talked to, they go to different schools, and I guess, a lot of them have been very dissatisfied, and every school system is different, but a lot of parents feel that their students lost out a lot, over the last year. Do you think that there might be, I guess, we could use the word, an increase in demand for, Huntington's service because of what happened over the last year?
Yes, we already are seeing a demand for it. That said, one of the beautiful areas of Huntington is we value something called the Huntington Homeschool Connection. So we partner with the schools. We want the students, teachers to know, of course, with the family's permission, where the student is with Huntington. And I think because of COVID, it unveiled where the student was. So a family was all under one roof, and the parents saw their child struggling in real time. So it became more real. And look, we're all in COVID, so we all have to help each other. And we work with a lot of schools, a lot of different districts to provide support for their students. We want to help the child however the child can come to us. But you are absolutely right. There's something called the COVID slide, which is absolutely devastating in terms of the learning loss. I recently read a report about Atlanta students that the report is coming out that students are over 2 grade levels behind in some instances.
Yeah.
So now with all of the assessments, teachers and school districts, and quite frankly the nation, is seeing that there is a huge crisis in education, and we can help. Huntington can help. We can help the families. We can help the schools. And we understand that this has been a very, very disruptive year. And so how can we build up those skills for the students to ensure that we don't have a lost generation of students?
Right. It's wonderful services, Anne. And they're so important. My wife and I mean, we felt like we became the tutors to my son. He's 13 years old now, and a lot of times, like, he'll help us, he'll ask for help with like math homework, and I was taught a certain way to do things, many years ago, and it's different the way the children are taught today, and it was so stressful for both of us, you know what I mean? So even with the parents, so I think all these services that you're talking about, I mean, are so important that you're mentioning, and I think it's wonderful. And your industry, I mean, we're talking about tutoring and test prep, and I mean, it's safe to say, I mean, that you're part of a very big industry. I don't know what the numbers are in your industry, but I can only imagine that they're up there, and there's probably going to be some growth there as well in the industry.
Yes, we're already seeing growth there within Huntington. Folks are interested in making a positive impact in their community, and they see Huntington as the leader and a way in which they can positively impact. And across the board, education is at an inflection moment, especially when you think of all the ed tech and brick and mortar. So it's a really time to be leading Huntington Learning Center, and we get the results. So we haven't just popped up, last year to capitalize on a situation. We've been doing this for 44 years, and we have the results to back us. I mean, on average, our student in 50 hours will go up over 2 grade levels in reading and math. This 50 hours is a little more than a work week. I mean, my work week's more than 50 hours. But
imagine.
I'm not your typical person. And then on our test prep side, our students will go up on average 5.4 points and 229 points on the SAT and 5.4 on the ACT. That helps with scholarship. We did a survey of our 2019 students, and on average, students got $71,000 worth of scholarship opportunities, which really, really helps in terms of college debt and what opportunities may be realistic or may be a dream. So all in all, yes, the industry is booming. It's a really exciting time to be leading Huntington, and we have a fabulous support team, fabulous franchisees, and the future is really bright for us.
It's really, it's an investment, isn't it, Anne? It's not an expense, as you were just mentioning, and you have all these measurable results, you know what I mean, to, of course, when you're selling the service, of course, to your customers, and I think that's wonderful. I wonder if Eileen or Dr. Huntington or yourself, you and you probably have these numbers, but I don't know if you remember, McDonald's used to say like millions of burgers served, or billions burgers. It's interesting how many students you've worked with in those 44 years. It's probably, I mean, the numbers are up there, aren't they?
Yes, it is up there, and even in the last year, we've instructed millions of hours online of tutoring, and yes, over the 44 years, the number is up into the millions. And I just think that whether it's franchising, whether you're a parent or you have friends who are parents, now is the time where there's just such a need, and I can only imagine how it is for you when you're dealing with your 13-year-old child. You understand math, and you're probably pulling out your hair saying, I should be able to do this. And that's where we can come in and we can help, and that's why we have been helping so many students over the years and so many families because they trust us and they know that we can help.
It's wonderful. And one of the things I was thinking of, too, is, something that may be a little bit more difficult to measure, but I guess, of course, one of the major outcomes of Huntington Learning Center is the confidence that a student has, don't they? I mean, it's certainly increased. By knowing more, you become more confident, don't you? And I'm sure you have more experience with that than I do, but certainly an outcome, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's one of the components of our secret sauce. So we build skills, confidence, and motivation. We are all individualized, so each learning program is specific to the student. So the student comes in, takes an academic evaluation, which pinpoints exactly where the student is academically. We share the results with the family, so the family can see my child is reading at this level, math is at this level, and then we show them the family, this is what the plan's going to be, this is how many hours it's going to take to get up to grade level, or if it's an enrichment student to get to where the goal is, and then we build that plan. Because it's based on the student's needs, that confidence, it's just night and day from when they enter Huntington to when they leave Huntington. It's miraculous what we're able to do.
That's wonderful. Maybe we could talk a little bit about franchising, Anne. I mean, what types of characteristics does Huntington typically look for in their prospective franchisees? I always thought something like this would be a great, how, Eileen and Dr. Huntington started off was a husband and wife. Not to say you have to be a husband and wife to own a Huntington Learning Center, but what types of characteristics do you look for in your franchisees?
Well, the number one is the franchisee needs to like kids. Because you're dealing with children. Someone who understands how to follow a system, as you said earlier, the franchising slogan, you're in business for yourself, not by yourself. And an individual who not only wants to make an impact, positive impact in the community, but also wants to do well financially. It's really important to realize this is a business, and so you have to make sure you manage your fixed and variable costs. So that you can keep the lights on and you can help as many students as possible. And someone who is empathetic but strong and understands that if you need help, that you ask for help, and someone who wants to fulfill the mission.
And it's interesting because the training must have shifted too. I mean, we're talking 1 year ago. I mean, so there was a shift there too, I guess, Anne, wasn't there? Again, mentioning that, that was the theme of last year's show was, COVID and how training changed. So I'm sure training changed a little bit for your new franchisees as well, or your ongoing training. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Our entire corporate office changed, and we're still remote actually, and we're more efficient, we're more collaborative, so we're having conversations in terms of what that long term looks like. Since COVID began, everything was online, and our training department, which just received an award with Training Magazine, is one of the top training support departments, which is awesome.
That's amazing.
So our training has completely changed. And we do have some franchisees who joined Huntington during COVID, one of whom opened a couple days ago last year. And she just posted on LinkedIn, can you believe what happened a year ago? So we pride ourselves on our training and our support. And through the Franchise Business Review, we always get top of class in those categories, which is great. So how it has changed, it's obviously all remote. We have a franchise track. We have a staff track. We have an on-demand learning portal with hundreds of different modules and different lessons, and you need a refresher on whatever course you may need to learn. And we make sure that everyone is trained appropriately before they work with a student or they work with a family. So even in COVID times, we have been able to ensure that when we had to evolve as a company, we made sure that everyone was trained and ready to support the student, be it in a center or online.
When I have someone like yourself on the show, and what I mean is someone who has had all these accomplishments, because I've read, your biography, and I sometimes wonder, I said, when you sleep, you must have so much energy, because you do so many other things, which is amazing. What advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise, because you know that there's so much out there today. I mean, I think they said there's something like 3,500 different systems to choose from. So, in doing this show such a long time, we find that a lot of our listeners in the beginning, they don't even know where to begin because there's so much out there. And from everything that you've learned in your life up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
The advice, first, I would say congratulations. You're making a great decision going into franchising. I would first do research, figure out, well, what do you like? Are you doing it by yourself? Are you doing it with a partner, with a friend? What are your skill sets? Do you see yourself working in the business? Do you see yourself as a passive investor? What are the different industries you like? If you don't like something, chances are you're not going to gravitate towards that. Franchising has a lot of different categories to choose from. And then do your due diligence and make sure that it's the right fit. And take time, validate, and see, does this make sense financially? Am I overreaching? Should I start someplace else and then maybe work my way up? What is your 1 year, your 3 year, your 5 year, your 10-year plan? And then figure out what makes sense. And don't be afraid to ask for help. There are fantastic organizations, fantastic folks such as yourself. Lean on those resources. In franchising, we're all very welcoming, and we want to help further franchising. The International Franchise Association is a great way to also learn about franchising. So first, realize this is a great opportunity, and take your time. Evaluate what you like, what you don't like, what's reasonable in terms of where you're at in your life. What can you take on? Are you more risk adverse? Great, franchising works for you. And you need to make sure it makes sense financially. And ultimately, just have conversations with people and be open to new ideas. Also, brokers are a great way as well. So there are a lot of different ways to find out. Expos as well. A lot, obviously, they're all online right now. But there's so many great resources within franchising.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. So if we could talk about maybe just short-term goals and long-term goals, Anne, I mean, do you see, the centers, I guess it's so hard to predict, isn't it? But, 6 months, a year down the road, I guess hopefully, I don't know, again, if we'll ever go back to normal, but do you see the Huntington centers going back to, of course, that brick and mortar? And then maybe you could think about, or talk about where you see the organization 3 years or 5 years down the road.
Great question. Families are really interested in person right now, so we do uptick in person. And as I shared earlier, of course, we follow all the guidelines. We see that online is a great opportunity to help students who may not be able to come into the center. So one thing we didn't touch on, but within franchising, one of the keys is partnership between the franchisee and the franchisor. And so we created a council, which is called our e-tutoring strategic council, and it's comprised of various franchisees and franchisor members to really strategize what is the long-term goal of Huntington Live and online. So we're right now in the throes of what does that permanent way look like, because it wasn't in the franchise disclosure document last year because it didn't exist, or the franchise agreement. So of course we had to create amendments for all these exciting opportunities. So the long-term goal, we make decisions that are best for the system, that further our mission and our vision, and we solicit advice from our franchise community who are really at the front line. So that e-tutoring strategic council is doing great work to really strategize what's the long-term vision for online. In addition, we're seeing, does the footprint, the brick and mortar, need to be as large as it is? Can it be smaller? So we're thinking about that. And within franchising in pre-COVID times, you would always test and retest before you would roll out to a system. So all of our programs during COVID, it was just a full system beta test, basically. So I am grateful that our franchisees were and are patient with us, because we were and are rolling things out in real time. So the key once it gets post-COVID is to make sure that we learn from what we just experienced. We see that online has a place in Huntington. Does the brick and mortar need to be the particular square footage? We're still wrapping our head around that. What services make sense? We see a tremendous opportunity to help states and districts and schools because of that learning loss due to COVID. And during No Child Left Behind, we were one of the leading providers for different districts across the country. So we see that we can really partner with schools. And truly, within the next 3 years, it's scaling and expanding, and probably scaling and expanding past the United States.
That's wonderful. What's the best way, Anne, for our listeners to get more information on Huntington Learning Center? Of course, there's the service and of course, the franchise opportunity. Are there any websites you can kind of point them or direct them to?
Sure. So our consumer site is HuntingtonHelps.com, and then our franchise site is HuntingtonFranchise.com. If you go on Huntington Helps, you can always get to the Huntington franchise as well. And follow us on our different social media platforms and let us know how we can help. You can also call 1-800-CAN-LEARN, and one of our education specialists will direct your call appropriately. So HuntingtonHelps.com, HuntingtonFranchise.com, and when in doubt, 1-800-CAN-LEARN.
That's fantastic. Well, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed talking to you today, Anne, and I'd like to already invite you back in the future as you continue to grow, because I think you have such an important service.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here today.
Thank you, Anne. This has been my pleasure, and we'll be right back with more franchise interviews.